Chosen one, pause for a moment. Because what you are about to hear is not meant for everyone. This message is for the one who stayed when it would have been easier to quit, for the one who kept believing in Allah when nothing around them made sense anymore. You were watched in silence, not by people but by Allah Himself. In the nights when you cried alone, in the days when you kept going without recognition, in the moments when your heart was tired but your faith refused to die, Allah was observing something far deeper than your actions. He was watching your intention, your patience, your response to pressure, and your loyalty when the reward was invisible. And what you showed Him in that hidden season is exactly what Allah needed to see from you before what comes next. Stay with this message, because it may explain why your life is about to change in ways you never expected. Chosen one, this lesson exists because Allah does not measure faith the way people do. He measures it in moments where belief feels heavy, confusing, and unrewarded. When your plans collapsed, when doors closed without explanation, when your dua seemed to echo back in silence, Allah was not absent. He was watching how you carried yourself in the darkness. You stayed faithful when logic failed you, when timelines broke your heart, and when answers did not arrive on your schedule. You continued to pray even when hope felt fragile, continued to speak well of Allah even when life felt unfair, and continued to trust His wisdom while your own understanding was exhausted. This is the kind of faith Allah needed to see. Faith that does not depend on outcomes, applause, or immediate relief. Many believe only when blessings are visible, but Allah wanted to know who you were when belief required courage, restraint, and humility. You did not walk away in anger, you did not abandon your values, and you did not accuse Allah of injustice. Instead, you held on to His names, trusted His decree, and whispered, Ya Allah, even when your heart was tired. That silent loyalty, that refusal to let confusion turn into disbelief, is what elevated you in the unseen. Allah needed to see that you would remain His servant even when the path was unclear, because only someone who stays faithful in confusion can be trusted with clarity later. Chosen one, Allah placed you in situations where your emotions were provoked on purpose, where people tested your patience, crossed your boundaries, misunderstood your intentions, and treated you in ways that could have easily justified anger, revenge, or harsh words. And Allah watched carefully not to see how loud you could be, but how disciplined you could remain. You had every reason to react, to defend yourself, to expose others, to respond with the same energy you were given, yet you chose restraint when it hurt, silence when it was misunderstood, and dignity when it would have felt good to strike back. This was not weakness, this was strength under control. Allah needed to see whether pressure would corrupt your character or refine it, whether power would turn you arrogant or make you merciful. You understood that reactions reveal ego, but character reveals faith. You trusted that Allah sees what people miss, that justice does not need your aggression, and that your role was not to win arguments but to preserve your soul. Every time you held your tongue, every time you walked away from disrespect without becoming disrespectful yourself, every time you chose integrity over emotional release, you were passing a hidden test. Allah was preparing you for higher ground, and higher ground requires emotional mastery. Because someone who cannot control their reaction cannot be trusted with influence, leadership, or divine favor. Chosen one, Allah intentionally removed the noise, the crowd, the validation, and the familiar faces so that what remained was only you and him. Because sincerity is never proven in public, it is revealed in isolation. When no one was watching, when your efforts went unnoticed, when your kindness was not praised, and your sacrifices were misunderstood, Allah observed the state of your heart. You continued to do good without an audience, continued to worship without applause, and continued to seek Allah without needing reassurance from people. This was the test of ikhlas, where intention is purified through loneliness and faith is stripped of every external reward. Allah needed to see whether you were attached to recognition or attached to Him, whether your obedience was conditional or absolute. You did not serve Allah for likes, praise, or acceptance. You served Him because your soul knew where its true worth came from. Even when isolation felt heavy and your heart questioned why you were unseen, you resisted the temptation to perform righteousness for approval. That quiet sincerity became your greatest strength, because Allah entrusts the heaviest blessings only to those whose intentions cannot be corrupted by attention. What you practiced in the unseen is what Allah will soon honor in the seen, for no act done purely for Him is ever wasted. Chosen one, Allah placed you in a season where the weight on your chest was relentless, where responsibilities multiplied beyond what you thought you could bear, where emotional, mental, and spiritual exhaustion became a constant companion, and where even moments that should have offered rest or peace instead became reminders of the challenges surrounding you. In that season, Allah was not primarily testing your strength, your endurance, or your intelligence. He was testing your attachment, your reliance, and your intimacy with Him. Every sigh, every tear, every moment of silence in your heart became a gauge of sincerity, because Allah needed to see whether you would remain devoted when devotion felt burdensome, whether you would continue reaching for Him when nothing else in your life seemed reachable, whether you would continue to stand, bow, and kneel when your body felt weak and your soul felt heavy. Many people abandon prayer under pressure, not because they stop believing, but because exhaustion, stress, and the weight of their trials convince them that they are too tired, too distracted, too overwhelmed, or too broken to continue. But you, chosen one, did something rare and remarkable. Even when your body was screaming for rest, you stood. Even when your heart was fractured by disappointment and your spirit weary from the endless tests, you bowed. Even when your mind was crowded with anxiety, fear, unanswered questions, and the uncertainties of life pressing in from every side, you raised your hands and whispered, Ya Allah. And even when your prayers felt heavy, when concentration eluded you, when peace seemed impossible to attain, you continued praying. This is the lesson of patience in action. This is the test of sincerity. This is what Allah needed to see. Because prayer under pressure is not a matter of words, ritual, or perfection. It is a matter of loyalty, trust, and unwavering commitment. It is about refusing to allow pain, disappointment, or hardship to rewrite your relationship with your Creator. It is about choosing connection over convenience, obedience over rebellion, submission over resistance, and surrender over the desperate need to control outcomes. Allah saw you kneel and rise even when answers did not come, even when life seemed stagnant, even when it felt as though your du'as fell into silence. Allah saw you return to the prayer mat after setbacks that could have shattered your faith, saw you whisper His name in the darkness of your loneliness when the world could not comfort you, and witnessed your resolve to seek Him not only as a solution but as a refuge, a sanctuary, and the anchor for your soul. Every act of prayer in those moments of pressure, every tear shed in humility, every whispered plea was like a seed planted in the unseen, growing strength, patience, and reliance that could never have emerged from ease or comfort. Allah was teaching you a truth few truly comprehend, that prayer is not a transaction, not a tool to demand relief, but a lifeline that sustains you when the world turns against you, a source of strength when circumstances fail, and a mirror reflecting the depth of your submission to Him. By not abandoning prayer under pressure, you prove that your faith is unconditional, that your worship is not tied to convenience or immediate reward, and that your relationship with Allah is resilient enough to endure silence, delay, opposition, and hardship without faltering. Allah needed to see that adversity would not embitter your heart, that trials would not distance you, and that struggles would not weaken your devotion, because someone who can maintain prayer under relentless pressure can be trusted with blessings, responsibilities, and divine assignments that others cannot endure. Every time you prayed in weakness, Allah strengthened your heart. Every time you returned to Him despite fatigue, He reinforced your trust. Every whispered, "Ya Allah," spoken in fear and uncertainty, became a testament to a devotion refined by fire, loyalty forged in darkness, and intimacy strengthened by trial. Allah needed to see that you would not rely on comfort, recognition, or ease to maintain closeness with Him, that your faith would not waver when external validation disappeared, and that your soul could carry the weight of hardship without letting it erode sincerity, humility, or love for Allah. And because you did not abandon prayer under pressure, Allah is preparing a season of relief and blessing that will arrive at a time when your heart is strong enough to embrace it fully, when your soul is ready to carry its responsibility without compromising sincerity, and when your faith is anchored so deeply that no trial, envy, or circumstance can shake it. The prayers you offered while weary are the foundation for doors that are about to open, for blessings that are about to multiply, and for divine plans that will unfold perfectly in alignment with your faith, patience, and unwavering loyalty. What you prayed in silence, in exhaustion, in tears, and in persistence was never unseen. It was recorded, treasured, and honored in ways the world cannot measure, and because you remained steadfast when remaining faithful felt hardest, Allah is now preparing for you a life where your heart will be filled, your efforts rewarded, your du'a answered, and your relationship with Him strengthened beyond anything you have ever imagined. Prayer, under pressure, has transformed you from someone who worships in comfort to someone who worships in surrender, from someone who seeks relief to someone who finds strength in connection, and from someone whose devotion is conditional to someone whose faith is unshakable. Chosen one, this is the level of spiritual maturity Allah wanted to see, and you have passed it with patience, resilience, and unwavering trust, proving that no matter how heavy life becomes, you will remain anchored in the One who never abandons you. Chosen one, this lesson was one of the most intense, painful, and refining tests Allah placed in your path, because it required you to release something your soul had grown used to holding tightly control. You wanted clarity, certainty, timelines, and guarantees. You wanted to know the how, the when, the why, and the where, because the human heart clings to understanding, and the mind fears uncertainty. You wanted reassurance that your efforts, your sacrifices, and your patience would not be wasted, that every moment you endured hardship, frustration, and delay would eventually lead to the visible outcomes you longed for. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom and mercy, slowly, deliberately, and intentionally dismantled your ability to manage the results, not to punish you, but to purify you, to test the depth of your reliance, and to teach your heart that surrender to Him is not a weakness, but the highest form of strength. He placed you in circumstances where no amount of planning, strategizing, or preparation could save you, where human logic failed, where every route you thought was safe collapsed, and where the only option left was to surrender completely. And in those moments of uncertainty, when the ground beneath your feet seemed unstable and the horizon unclear, Allah watched closely, not your actions, but your heart. He watched to see whether you would panic, manipulate, force doors open, or compromise your values just to feel secure, or whether you would place your trust fully, entirely, and courageously in Him, even while trembling, even while your heart felt weak, even while your mind screamed for answers that had not yet arrived. And you chose trust. You chose Tawakkul, not as a slogan to repeat, not as a concept to admire, but as a lived, tangible reality. You did your part sincerely, putting effort, patience, and diligence into what was within your control, and then you released the outcomes entirely into Allah's hands, even when waiting felt unbearable, even when anxiety gnawed at your soul, even when your ego resisted the idea of letting go of certainty. You stopped chasing outcomes that were never meant for you. You stopped forcing connections, relationships, and opportunities that required you to shrink, compromise, or dilute your values. You stopped exhausting yourself by trying to predict or manipulate the future that Allah had already written. This surrender was not passive. It was courageous, active, and spiritually transformative. Allah needed to see whether your faith depended on circumstances or whether it was rooted in the One who orchestrates all things. He needed to see whether you trusted Him only when the road was clear and smooth, or whether you would trust Him when the path disappeared, when every familiar landmark was gone, and when every plan you held dear seemed to collapse before your eyes. Every whispered, "Ya Allah, I leave this to you." Every moment you refrained from interference, every instance you resisted rushing divine timing, strengthened a spiritual muscle that few ever develop, the muscle of deep, unwavering reliance. You learned a profound truth that only hardship teaches. Control creates anxiety, but trust creates peace, not because the circumstances change, but because your heart stops carrying what was never yours to carry. Allah watched as you resisted comparison with others, refused to measure your worth by visible progress, and surrendered attachments that weighed down your soul. He redirected your focus from temporary results to eternal growth, from visible outcomes to hidden rewards, from human validation to divine satisfaction. In that surrender, your faith matured in ways that could never have occurred without letting go. You no longer needed constant signs to keep believing. You no longer needed immediate answers to remain obedient. You discovered that Allah's silence is never abandonment, that delay is never denial, and that what He withholds temporarily is often what He is protecting eternally. Allah needed to see that you would not worship control, success, status, or certainty, but that you would worship Him alone, with unwavering devotion, even when the outcome remained unseen. Because someone who cannot release control will panic when elevated, will become arrogant when blessed, will crumble when tested again, and will mismanage the responsibilities entrusted to them. But someone who trusts Allah fully, who surrenders their timeline, their expectations, and their fears, can be entrusted with more opportunities, more influence, more responsibilities, more divine favor without losing humility, without allowing the heart to harden, and without drifting away from the source of all provision, protection, and guidance. What you released was never lost. It was returned to you in a form far safer than your imagination, at a time far wiser than your understanding, and with far less pain than you feared. Your surrender became a shield for your heart, a bridge to patience, and a foundation for blessings that will arrive at the exact moment you are ready to receive them fully. And because you trusted Allah while letting go of control, you have earned a spiritual freedom, a heart unburdened by worry, and a connection to Allah that is unshakable. What is coming to you now will not overwhelm, mislead, or distract you, because your heart has been trained to receive, your soul has been prepared to endure, and your faith has been proven steadfast. You are ready for the elevation, the responsibility, and the blessings that Allah has been preparing for you all along, and the path forward will reveal that surrender was never loss. It was the greatest gain, the highest trust, and the most profound proof that Allah sees your heart, values your obedience, and honors those who place their trust fully in Him without clinging to the illusion of control. Chosen one, Allah placed you in situations where the weight of human misunderstanding, ingratitude, and betrayal pressed heavily upon your heart, and He deliberately allowed you to face moments where leaving became inevitable, not because you wanted to, but because staying would have compromised your soul. He watched closely to see whether your heart would become hardened by disappointment or softened by patience, whether your spirit would shrink in response to cruelty or rise through the refinement of trials. You gave your time, energy, and love generously to people, places, and causes, investing your heart deeply, and yet the outcomes did not always honor your effort. Some relationships failed, some opportunities collapsed, and some people turned away or misjudged you. Many would have carried resentment, hatred, or a lingering bitterness in their hearts, a subtle but corrosive burden that colors every decision, every interaction, and every blessing that follows. But you did not. You resisted the temptation to allow anger, jealousy, or regret to dictate your next step. You walked away not with vengeance, not with a desire to retaliate, but with dignity, humility, and faith. Allah needed to see whether you could release without resistance, whether you could detach without harboring resentment, whether you could surrender what no longer served your soul without losing the light in your heart. Walking away without bitterness is one of the rarest spiritual stations because it requires courage, not the courage to confront others, but the courage to confront your own ego and your own expectations, to let go of what you thought you deserved, and to trust that Allah's plan is infinitely wiser than your own understanding. You learn to recognize that closure does not always come from others, that peace does not require validation, and that letting go is not defeat but divine strategy. Every time you chose distance over drama, silence over accusation, and detachment over toxicity, you were proving your heart could endure without staining itself. You refused to drag old pain into new chapters, refused to allow past wounds to dictate your future, and refused to let unresolved anger eclipse your faith. Allah watched as you transformed grief into growth, betrayal into lessons, and endings into openings for something far greater than you could yet perceive. You blessed those who misunderstood you, forgave those who hurt you, and released those who could not stay in a way that preserved your heart and elevated your soul. Allah needed to see that you could rise above resentment, because bitterness contaminates trust, clouds judgment, and blocks blessings. By walking away without becoming bitter, you demonstrated that you can carry His favor, His light, and His trust, without allowing worldly pain to corrupt the purity of your heart. You learned that letting go is a form of worship, detachment is a sign of strength, and choosing peace over provocation is a reflection of sincere devotion. The trials that once felt like endings became preparation for new beginnings that are aligned with your soul's highest good, where your efforts will be honored, your intentions will be recognized, and your presence will be cherished without compromise. Because you walked away without bitterness, Allah is preparing a season where the hearts around you will match your sincerity, the doors in front of you will open with ease, and the blessings coming will not be weighed down by past grudges, disappointments, or unresolved pain. This is why walking away gracefully is one of the most powerful signs of a chosen one. It shows that your spirit has been refined, your heart has been protected, and your faith has been trusted to carry weight without faltering, and now Allah can entrust you with what is meant only for those who have mastered the art of leaving without losing themselves. Chosen one, Allah placed you in a crucible of challenges, trials, and responsibilities that could have easily inflated your ego, hardened your heart, or led you to pride. And He did this deliberately to observe whether strength would corrupt you or refine you, whether elevation would distance you from sincerity or deepen your connection to Him. From the very beginning, the world tested you in ways that demanded resilience, wisdom, and courage. And every time you were tested, there was an opportunity to either become proud of your accomplishments, resentful of others' envy, or dismissive of the dependence you have on Allah. Yet you did something extraordinary. You grew stronger without letting power cloud your perspective. You gained influence without demanding recognition, and you became capable without becoming arrogant. Strength is not measured only in what you can endure or achieve. It is measured by how you remain anchored when the world is at your feet, by how you guard your soul when blessings flow, and by how you treat the smallest of people when the largest opportunities arrive. Allah needed to see whether you could handle what He was preparing for you without letting your pride grow, without letting human praise define your worth, and without letting worldly success dilute your sincerity. You learned to navigate influence carefully, to use your voice responsibly, to act decisively while staying conscious of your intentions, and to carry responsibility humbly. Every achievement, every breakthrough, every recognition that you quietly received was a reflection not of ego, but of perseverance, sincerity, and patience. Even in moments where others misjudged you, attempted to undermine you, or doubted your capability, you responded with wisdom, patience, and measured action. Your humility did not weaken your strength, it amplified it. You understood that true power is inseparable from submission to Allah, that leadership without humility is corruption, and that recognition without gratitude is a trap. Allah needed to see whether you would remain humble when He elevated you, whether your heart would stay soft when your position became more visible, and whether your intentions would remain pure when opportunities multiplied. You learned that strength is not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself, that influence is not about controlling people, but about guiding them gently, and that elevation is not about being noticed, but about being entrusted. Every act of patience, every decision to restrain ego, every moment you chose service over show, contributed to a hidden record of character and devotion that only Allah can truly measure. You became someone who can carry weight without breaking, bear responsibility without arrogance, and wield authority without compromising integrity. This is the rarest of stations, because the world will often confuse power with pride. But Allah's chosen ones distinguish themselves by keeping their hearts soft, their intentions pure, and their souls anchored in divine consciousness, even as their capability grows. You became strong not for recognition, not for control, and not for temporary satisfaction, but to serve the purpose Allah designed specifically for you, to fulfill responsibilities that only someone of your refined character can manage, and to protect what is sacred in your life and the lives of those around you. And because of this, Allah is preparing opportunities that require your exact balance of strength and humility, challenges that will demand your wisdom without tempting arrogance, and blessings that will elevate your soul while keeping it anchored. You are becoming a living testament to the truth that true power is measured not by what others see, but by how faithfully you remain humble while carrying the weight of the unseen, obedient and sincere in the light of Allah's knowledge, ready for the responsibilities that only a heart so refined can handle, and prepared for a destiny that was always meant for one who can be strong without losing humility. Chosen one, now you see the pattern. Every test, every delay, every hardship, every moment of silence was never wasted. Allah was watching, and He was not just observing your actions, He was observing your heart. He wanted to see patience where others would panic, humility where others would boast, sincerity where others would seek praise, and trust where others would force control. Every lesson you lived, every step you took, every choice to stay faithful, to restrain anger, to pray in exhaustion, to let go without bitterness, and to remain humble while growing stronger, has prepared you for a season that only you can carry. What Allah needed to see from you, you have already shown Him, and now He is ready to open doors, place opportunities, and elevate your path in ways the world cannot comprehend. Your story is no longer just about survival, it is about manifestation, alignment, and purpose. The challenges you endured were not punishments, but refinements. The loneliness you felt was not abandonment, but preparation. The moments of doubt were not a test of Allah's presence, but a test of your resilience and devotion. Chosen one, as you move forward, remember this: your faith, patience, and integrity have already proven your worth in the sight of Allah. What comes next is not random. It is deliberate, divinely timed, and divinely protected. So continue to pray, continue to trust, continue to serve, and continue to remain humble. Because the light that Allah is about to place in your life is too bright for pride, too powerful for arrogance, and too sacred to be wasted on anything but pure intention. You have been prepared. You have been tested. You have been refined. And now, it is time for your breakthrough, your divine elevation, and your fulfillment. Walk forward with courage, carry your heart with purity, and know that Allah has been proud of you from the very beginning, and what He has in store for you next will be greater than anything you could ever imagine.